Can everyone breathe? Oh, how good is it to not wear a mask? I'm just going to ask the question why God didn't give me 3 arms and hands. There we go. All right. How are we? We good? Settle in. I'm going to go through... We're going to go on a bit of a journey. It may rattle some people, and I just want to say I'm not claiming to have all the answers. I'm a fellow journeyman. So yeah, feel free to look it up. If it challenges you, then do some research, look into it. If you think I'm a heretic, get in line. A while ago, it wasn't actually that long ago, one of my good friends, he put these words together and threw them at me, and it was, wow, that's deep. And he said, do you prefer mastery over mystery or mystery over mastery? And it took me down this path of, I guess, wrestling. I think that's something that we all wrestle with over times. And as this message goes on, this will make sense to you guys. And I think there's a tension in trying to find a way to be at peace when you're going for mastery or whether you're exploring mystery. And I think the unhealth, or if that's a word, or the imbalance can come when we will sometimes prefer one or the other over the other. And so if you just prefer mastery at the cost of being open to mystery. And I see that happen, and it's sort of like a bit of a stumbling block, I find, for some people. They've got this sort of need to know something, and if they don't, it's a little unsettling. And there's this tension between being open to mystery, but being a curious human being and the good question asker you are, you will seek out to find answers and take a pursuit in mastery. That being said, in 2 Samuel 24:1, if you got a Bible and you want to come with me, we go on to 2 Samuel 24:1. A long time ago, there was a king who wanted to take a census. Apparently, it was around 550 BC. And this is what 2 Samuel 24:1 says. Again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, go and take a census of Israel and Judah. Interesting. Now, before we go on, so a long time ago before that, there was an Egyptian empire. And they took a nation into slavery, Israel. Yeah. And they, I'm pretty sure a lot of us know this, but Israel was in slavery to them for a long time. And they were like a slave labor force for the Egyptians. And, they were oppressed for generations. And Egyptians made some incredible buildings off the back of this big slave labor force. And then one day, the God of Israel, he declared that he'd heard the cry of his people, and that he was in the business of liberating. He was in the business of saving. Pretty amazing. An incredible display of miracles happened. It was wild, it was outrageous, it was mind-boggling. And he freed those guys, freed Israel from Egypt. And that moment became the defining story for those people and that people group for literally thousands of years after. That moment, they created feasts, rituals, meals, stories, and traditions all came out of that one defining moment, became that nation's identity. It was deeply connected to their identity. And so as they're coming out, obviously they needed Leviticus to happen. When you're in slavery for generations and you don't know how to be who you were always made to be, it's helpful if your liberator teaches you how to be a good community and be in this state of harmony with each other, with God and with the earth and with other people, groups as well. And so Leviticus happened, and in that, for those of you that don't know too much about it, Leviticus, there's just a bunch of instructions. And it's super boring. I remember reading it as a teenager, and I was very zealous for the Lord, and I thought, yeah, I'm reading the whole Bible. And I remember getting to Leviticus, I was like, oh, wow. And it was really hard. So hands up if you ever read the whole book of Leviticus. Yeah, and that's more than I thought. For whatever reason, I've done it a couple of times. But I guess the more that context comes around, it becomes more interesting. And if you want, there's plenty of good resources out there to get into it and actually get something out of it. When you try and read it with no context, you'll struggle to get anything out of it. But with the right context, you'll get there. And there's a lot of good stuff. It was the first time where this idea that you could be at peace with God. All the other gods, you never really knew where you stood with them. And there was all sorts of wild things that could happen at the drop of a hat. But Leviticus announced that you could be at peace with this God and that he made a way for that to happen. Very cutting edge thinking at that time. So it is a kind of cool book. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Amongst the many instructions was the strict warning to not become like Egypt. The place that they came out of, it was like, here's all these rules, and it's kind of like in the rules, there's like hints, don't do this, and that was exactly like what the Egyptians were doing to them. Don't do that, like the Egyptians. It's like, whatever you do, don't become like Egypt. Don't become a power-hungry empire, and do not oppress others. Because we have to remember that the mandate on this nation, it was to bless other nations. It was to be a blessing to the world, which is another, like, no one thought like that in these times. No one thought, well, everyone was looking after their own selves, my tribe's just looking out for its own best interests, and this idea that you are going to be responsible to bless everyone. It's a mind-blowing concept, but that was their mandate, and that's the thing that God is trying to say. Remember, come back to your roots. You've been in slavery, but there's a history behind this. You guys have a mandate to be a blessing to the entire world. And so now, let's go back to David, taking up that census. Why was he taking up the census? He was shaping up against the neighboring countries. He was seeing how big his army was so he could keep his nation's security and be able to oppress other nations around him and do that with military force. He specifically wanted to know, how many fighting men do I have? At the time, there was no God wasn't like, hey man, I just want you to blast these guys at this time. There was none of that. He just thought, there's a lot of cool stuff going on. I'm going to try and build a temple. Oh, how am I going to do this? I need to stay in power here. And this thinking's crept in. I need to know how strong we are. I need to know what I got so I can flex on these nations if I want to. Kind of a slippery slope. And so, if we look back to the reading of that scripture, we see it says that the Lord incited David to do this. And it's like this crazy thing, and God judges the nation for it. And it's like, the Lord incited David to do this. It's strange. Then, I know, I'm just going to do this now. I'm going to preempt it, because by the end of this message, I probably will be a blubbering mess. I pretend I'm tough and crazy all the time and like really strong and like heaps manly, but and I am. I have emotional problems. I'm not very good at showing them or feeling them, but for some reason, whenever I do this, it all comes undone. And that's my... Oh, I don't know. Is it a blessing? Is it a curse? I don't know. For me, it feels like a curse. Maybe it's a blessing to someone else. I don't know. So the Lord caused him to do this. Very interesting. Now, roughly 200 to 250 years later, okay, we find the Book of Chronicles is getting written. And it records the exact same story and pretty much tells the story verbatim of this census being taken up. It's recorded literally almost word for word, but there's this one word swap that the person writing Chronicles implemented. Are you ready to be challenged? Because I love it. I get a kick out of it. Challenging people. I don't know. That's something else I'm in therapy for. But let me read it. It's in 1 Chronicles 21:1. It says, Satan rose up against Israel and incited David to take a census of Israel. What? I did a degree in theology a long time ago. It took a long time to do as well. And I remember this conundrum or this contradiction being raised, and it was like a big problem for a lot of people. It was like, one says God did it, the other says Satan. It's not like one said an angel said it and the other one says God said it. It's not like, this wise sage said it and then this angel said it. It's like God said it and the other one says Satan says it. It's like, it's pretty wild, yeah? And I used to hear people trying to wrestle and come up and try and reconcile what the hell was going on with these two contradicting passages of Scripture. And I found that a lot of their attempts sort of just came off a little airy and a little unsatisfactory for me. And it kind of, to me, looking back, I feel like when I was watching people trying to reconcile this, that it was, they were having a crack at making something up out of fear. They were so concerned that this existed in their Bible. And over the years and after studying and listening to a range of voices, I feel like there's probably a little bit more of a simpler reason, and I think it's something so masterfully left in the Scriptures. And one time I thought it was this mistake, like when the editors were bringing the Scriptures together, it's like, who let that guy let that slip? He needs to be sacked. Like, what? Well, we got to get new editors, guys. No, I think it was masterfully left in. And because we remember there's 200 to 250 years gap between the stories. And one time, people used to think about God a certain way and that he behaved a certain way. And then over a couple of 100 years of walking with the Lord and seeing his goodness and seeing his grace and seeing his love, they were like, I used to think he was this way, but now I see him differently. Yeah. And so the way that we've translated that Chronicles in English, I'm pretty sure it's the first time the word Satan is used like that. It's like, they had to come up with a brand new concept to describe what the heck was going on. The word for Satan is more probably accurately said as the Satan. Do you like that? And it was about the one that is opposed to, and that the Hebrew word was used times before that moment where people were opposed to this, or there was an opposition against this, and it was always to do with God, and they used the Hebrew word like the Satan to describe all these things, but then they finally just, the way they used it here, they dropped it there. They felt it necessary. It's not like it was by no mistake that they left it in there. It was by absolute no mistake that they left it in there. And so people that are worried about we used to see things this way, and now we see things a little differently. Wild, right? It's really wild. So, remember the defining story of Israel that I was talking about? Israel was set free and liberated from the bondage that they were in Egypt, yeah? And they developed stories and traditions and even meals. Like, this story was so central to their identity that a good Hebrew boy, a good Jewish boy, a good Israelite, he would learn about that way before he thought, that he would dabble with the idea of the Genesis poems and the law. No, the first thing that they're going to learn, just through repetition, just through story, just through even eating, is that story. It was so central to their identity. And so this was going on for thousands of years. And then the night before Jesus' death, he goes to his 12 buddies, hey, can we get a room, a really secret room? We need to make sure no one's around for this. Can you get an upper room somewhere? We need to have a meal. I want to have the Passover with you guys. Let's go and do it. So they do it, and it's super secretive. And he goes in, and they're having the Passover meal. The story and the meal that was used as the core of their identity. And they thought God was so good because of this. They thought God was great because of this story. And then what does Jesus do? We use this story for communion all the time, but sometimes we've heard it so much that we don't realize that Jesus hijacked the Passover and said, don't do it anymore in remembrance of what happened. Now you do it in remembrance of me.
Very good.
If he had said that and anyone heard that out in the streets, it wouldn't have made it to the cross. He would have been he would have been stoned there and then. The outlandish nature, the outrageousness of saying, don't do that anymore in remembrance of that. That was good, but I'm coming to do something way better. Something way better. I freed you from captivity of Israel, but now I'm in the business of saving not just Israel, but all people everywhere from the oppression and the shortcomings and the slavery that they put on themselves. And now when I set you free from that, it doesn't matter what's happening in your external circumstances. You'll be free inside forever. And nothing can ever put you into slavery except for yourself. We used to think God was a certain way, but now we see him differently. And the whole reason I wanted to share these stories is to end the night with a question, and I hope this question sits with you. I hope it stirs you. I hope it challenges you, and I hope you go back to it in life, not just once, but every now and then you revisit this question. You know, the Bible is filled with moments, right? It's just loaded with moments where God is constantly blowing the minds of the people, proving that he's better than they thought, that he's bigger than they ever thought. You know, moments where people literally had their concept of the divine shattered and they'd have to rebuild it again. We used to think God was like this, but you're trying to tell me that you're better than that? Story of the prodigal son. Like in the Hebrew tradition, if they hear that story, they know that guy is worthy of a lot of bad stuff going his way. And Jesus saying, no, this story is about God. And he's not like that. And you've built traditions and laws based on what should happen here. And I'm telling you, it's not like that. He's better. He loves more. And so stuff like that, it's not just one parable of Jesus. It's happened, like I said, the editors left a big adjustment change in a story in the Old Testament. It's riddled all throughout scriptures. God constantly challenging the norm of who the divine is and what he's like. Ephesians 3:14-21. Now, this is another part of probably my brokenness, but I hate the Passion Translation. It's so hip right now, and it's like really girly, and everyone's like, oh, it's just the best. Oh, it really speaks to me more than the NIV. And I just want to reject it on that premises that it's hip right now, but I will read from the Passion Translation right now. I hate it. What a conformist. So in Ephesians 3:14-21 it says this: you will be empowered to discover what every holy one experiences, the great magnitude of the astonishing love of Christ in all its dimensions. How deeply intimate and far-reaching is his love. How enduring and inclusive it is. Endless love beyond measurement that transcends our understanding. This extravagant love pours into you until you are filled to overflowing with the fullness of God. So we're going to wrap it up soon. We'll probably invite the band up in a short minute, and I will use my manners. Have you ever noticed that? This is no knock to Brad and Amy either. I've seen it. So no matter where they use their manners too. But I've noticed there's so many preachers in that. They go, oh, band, can you come up now? I was like, can we get the band now? And I just want to make a conscious decision to say, please, may we have the band come up in a minute. I've seen Brad and Amy do it too. Not all the times, but most of the times. And that's the other part of my nature that needs redeeming. So I just want to maybe go through just the last few little things and ideas. Maybe we haven't totally explored how good God is. Maybe we, us as individuals, haven't done the exploring of how wide, how long, how high, how deep the love of God is. Have you ever thought that? You haven't found the boundaries yet. You haven't been to the longest length. You haven't seen the widest width. And maybe mastery over mystery, mystery over mastery. Maybe may we never kid ourselves. May we never kid ourselves into thinking that we have the infinite mastered. May we be open to the mystery of the goodness and the love of God. So may we please have the band up? And I want to leave you with this question. And I would like us to all stand if that was okay. Some of us struggle with ideas of God. I know that there's probably people that might watch this YouTube and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of cool with God, but I don't get this part of his nature. I don't get that part of his nature. Sorry, I'm just going to move this down out the road. Have you explored how wide, how deep his love is? Some of us, has any of us ever mastered how good and how loving God is? So I want to leave you with this question, and if everyone could just close their eyes, I want you to hear it and think about it and ask yourselves this every now and then. Could God be better than you ever realized? Could God be better than you ever realized? I'd say based in the scriptures and based in our tradition, the odds are that he probably is way better than you ever imagined. So I want to challenge you to open yourself up to that question from time to time. Could God be better than you actually realize? The answer is yes. Yes.